The challenge heard across the stars. The grand hall of the Galactic Council was alive with sound and light. Thousands of alien leaders had gathered there, each dressed in the shining colors of their people. It was a place of power, a place where wars were declared and peace was made. But on this night, the hall was filled with something different. Laughter. At the center stood Princess Syra of the Valith, a tall and fearsome warrior. Her armor was polished black metal that reflected the glowing crystals above. She had defeated champions from a dozen worlds, and her name carried fear across the stars. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she mocked the younger races who had recently joined the council. Her eyes narrowed at the humans, who sat quietly at the edge of the gathering. "Humans," she said, her lips curling into a smile. "So small, so fragile. You call yourselves warriors? Ha! You could not last one strike against me." The hall erupted in laughter, deep roars and sharp alien cries bouncing off the walls. Many agreed with her words. Humans were new to the galaxy, known for their curiosity and stubborn spirit, but not for their strength. Princess Syra raised her chin higher. "I make you this promise, and let all races hear it. If a human ever defeats me in combat, I will marry him." She laughed as she spoke, her voice sharp like a blade. "But that will never happen. No human could ever stand against me." The crowd roared again, some pounding their claws or hands on the floor in amusement. For them, it was only a joke, a bold and impossible claim from a warrior who had never tasted defeat. The idea of a human winning against her was laughable, but while others laughed, one figure stayed silent. A human man sat in the shadows of the hall. His clothes were plain, simple compared to the golden robes and jeweled armor of the aliens. He had no crown, no title, no shining medal to show. Only his steady eyes revealed something different. He listened carefully, each word burning into his mind. His jaw tightened, but he did not rise or speak. Not yet. The night went on with feasts and speeches. Syra basked in the attention, lifting her cup high, mocking and laughing, her words sharp as spears. "Let it be remembered," she shouted. "Again, I will never fall to a human. And if fate itself makes me lose, I will bind myself to him in marriage. Such is my confidence." Again, laughter filled the hall. The sound was almost deafening. Yet in that wave of sound, the human silence was louder than any voice. His heart beat steady, his mind focused. He had seen warriors like her before, proud, overconfident, blind to the strength of those they mocked. The council soon ended. Leaders returned to their ships, still laughing at the bold words of the princess. But whispers spread among them too. What if a human dared to take her? Words seriously? It would be madness. But also history. The human walked quietly through the corridors after the gathering. No one noticed him. No one cared. To the aliens, he was just another man from a weak race. But inside him, a storm was building. He replayed her words again and again. "If a human ever defeats me, I will marry him." She had said it before the council, before the galaxy. Her vow was sealed by her pride. And pride, he knew, was a chain that could not be broken. He stopped at a wide window that looked out into the endless stars. His reflection stared back at him, calm, steady, unreadable. His hands curled into fists, not in anger, but in decision. For her, it had been a joke. For him, it was a call, a challenge. The galaxy laughed at humans. They called them weak. But humans had something the galaxy did not understand, an iron will. A will that did not break, even when the body did. A will that turned jokes into oaths, and oaths into destiny. The man whispered to himself, his voice so soft only the stars could hear. "Then so be it. If fate requires me to fight her, I will." Far away in the hall, Princess Zira still laughed, enjoying her own words. She did not know that among the crowd she had mocked, someone had listened. She did not know that her joke would soon return to her, not as laughter, but as truth. And when it did, the galaxy itself would never forget. The human steps forward. Next day, the council arena buzzed with voices. Rumors from the night before had spread like fire. Across stations and fleets, across markets and palaces, beings whispered about the challenge. The warrior princess of the Velith had mocked humanity. In front of the galaxy, daring them with her vow, many laughed it off as nothing more than a drunken boast, a warrior's prideful words. But still, the idea hung in the air like smoke. What if a human actually answered? What if someone took her words seriously? Princess Zira stood in the center of the arena, her black armor glinting under the blue lights. Her long hair flowed like dark fire, and her sharp eyes scanned the crowd. She was proud, tall, certain that no human would dare step into her circle. Around her, thousands of alien leaders gathered to see if humanity had enough courage or foolishness to answer. "Are your champions?" Zira shouted, her voice echoing across the arena. "Where are the humans who call themselves strong? Have they already hidden? Or are they too afraid to stand before me?" The crowd laughed and cheered at her words. Some banged their claws on the ground, others hissed or shouted. The air was alive with the sound of mockery. For a moment, it seemed no one would rise. The human delegation sat quietly at the far end of the chamber, their faces still, their eyes avoiding the princess. They were diplomats, scientists, and officers, none of them warriors. But then, movement. From the shadows, the same silent man from the night before stepped forward. His walk was calm, his shoulders straight, his gaze steady. He wore no shining armor, only the simple uniform of a human soldier. The aliens turned to look at him, some in surprise, others in amusement. Princess Zira's eyes narrowed as she saw. Him, he did not look powerful. He did not shine with strength or carry weapons of legend. He looked ordinary. And yet, there was something in the way he carried himself, something that silenced the laughter. If only for a heartbeat, the man stopped at the edge of the arena. His voice was steady, clear, and strong. "I am here," he said. "I am human, and I accept your challenge." The arena exploded with sound. Some shouted with laughter, others roared with shock. Leaders leaned forward in disbelief. A human one of the very people mocked had stepped forward. Princess Zira tilted her head, her lips curling into a mocking smile. "You?" she said, her voice heavy with scorn. "You dare to stand before me? Do you not fear death, little human?" The man did not flinch. His eyes never left hers. "Fear is not the same as surrender," he answered. "You made a vow. I will hold you to it." The crowd gasped. Even the counselors who disliked humans felt the weight of his words. He had turned her joke into truth, her laughter into a vow that could not be broken. Zira laughed loudly, the sound sharp and cruel. "You are bold. I will give you that. But you are also foolish. Do you know how many I've defeated? Do you know how many champions begged for mercy before me? I am not them," the man said quietly. His tone was calm, not angry. He did not shout, did not boast. And that calmness unsettled her more than any loud words could. The council leader rose from his high seat, his golden robe flowing around him. His voice carried authority. "It is decided. By her vow and by his acceptance, combat will take place. The human will face Princess Zira in the arena of honor." The crowd roared again, the sound shaking the very walls. Some cheered, some mocked, others whispered with unease. This was no longer just a joke. It had become a test of what humanity truly was. The man bowed slightly, then turned and walked back to his delegation. His people looked at him in shock, some trying to stop him, others whispering his name. But he said nothing. His decision was made, and his silence spoke louder than their fear as he disappeared into the shadows again. Zira watched him with narrowed eyes. Something inside her twisted, not fear, not yet, but a strange feeling she did not like. This human had no armor, no special power. Yet he stood as if the whole galaxy could not bend him. The crowd chanted, their voices rising like a storm. The duel was set. The galaxy would watch in that moment. The princess realized something she had not felt in years' anticipation. This human might fall quickly, yes, but something inside her whispered that the fight would not be as easy as she had left it to be. And as for the human, he walked in silence, his heart steady. He did not fight for marriage, or pride, or even honor. He fought for something deeper than he. Chance to show the galaxy that humanity was not weak, that humans were not to be mocked. The stage was set. The vow had been spoken. The human had stepped forward. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the clash that would shake its stars. The duel begins. The arena of honor was unlike any place a human had ever stood before. It was built into the heart of the council station, a massive circle of black stone and shining silver walls. The floor was scarred from past battles marks, from blades, blasts, and claws of champions who had fought here. Above, thousands of beings filled the stands, their eyes glowing, their voices rising in an endless storm of sound. On one side stood Princess Zira. Her armor gleamed like a living shadow, her long blade resting across her shoulder. She looked every bit the conqueror. She was a warrior who had defeated countless challengers, who had never once bowed or bled before another. On the other side, the human entered. His steps were steady, his eyes calm. He wore no great armor, only a reinforced combat suit, light and plain compared to her gleaming plates. He carried a simple weapon, a short steel blade that seemed almost laughable next to hers. The crowd jeered as he walked forward. Some shouted insults in alien tongues, others roared with cruel laughter. "Weak human!" they cried. "End it quickly, Zira." But he did not look at them. His eyes never left hers. The council leader raised his hand, and silence fell across the arena. His voice carried like thunder. "I vow and witness, combat begins. The challenger human, the defender Princess Zira of Velith. This duel is to submission or defeat. Begin." A deep drum sounded, echoing through the chamber. The fight had begun. Zira wasted no time. With a roar, she launched forward, her blade cutting through the air like lightning. The speed of her strike was enough to kill most warriors in a single blow. The crowd gasped, certain it was already over. But the human moved, not with speed equal to hers, but with precision. He stepped aside, the blade missing him by inches, and his smaller sword flashed out, not to wound, but to test. The edge of his weapon scraped her armor, leaving only a thin mark. The crowd fell silent for a breath. He had avoided her strike. Zira's lips curled into a grin. "Good," she said. "At least you will not die in one blow." She came at him again, her strikes faster, sharper. Her blade cut the air in deadly arcs, each one meant to crush his defenses. But the human blocked, dodged, and rolled. He took hits on his arm and shoulder, but he always stood back up. Every time he was struck, the crowd roared with laughter. But every time he stood again, the laughter grew quieter. Minutes passed. Sweat dripped down the human's face. His breath came, heavy, but his eyes were the same calm, steady, unbroken. Zira snarled in frustration. "You are weaker. You are slower. Why do you not fall?" The human answered simply, his voice steady even as he raised his sword again. "Because I am human." The words carried through the arena. They were not shouted, but the silence around them made them strike harder than any blade. Zira's attacks grew more furious. She spun, struck, kicked, and slashed with all her power. Sparks flew as their blades met, the floor cracking beneath their steps. The sound of metal on metal echoed through the hall like thunder. The human stumbled once, falling to one knee as her strike cut across his shoulder, tearing his suit and drawing blood. The crowd erupted in cheers, certain it was the end. But slowly, painfully, he rose again. His hand gripped his blade tighter. Blood dripped down his arm, but his eyes still burned with that same unshakable fire. The princess paused for a heartbeat, her chest heaving. She had faced champions who screamed, who begged, who cursed when wounded. But this human did none of those things. He only stood, silent and steady, as if pain was nothing more than wind in his path. The crowd, once mocking, now began to murmur. Some whispered in disbelief, others leaned forward in fascination. The weak race of humans was not breaking. This man was still fighting. Zira raised her blade again, her voice sharp. "You should have fallen long ago. Why do you fight on?" The human's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. "Because you mocked us, because you laughed, and because now I want to see you fall." The words struck deeper than any weapon. For the first time in years, Princess Zira felt something she had not known in battle doubt. The duel raged on, each clash heavier, each strike louder. The human bled, but he fought with precision, with patience, waiting for the moment when her pride would open a weakness. And as the crowd watched, many began to see it. The fight was no longer a joke. This was not a weakling standing before their princess. This was something new, something dangerous, something human. The drums thundered again, shaking the walls. The duel had only begun, but already the galaxy could feel it. This fight would not end the way they had laughed it would. The turning point, the clash of steel echoed through the arena. Sparks flew as blades met again and again, the sound carrying across the galaxy's grandest hall. The crowd had stopped laughing. Their voices had shifted to whispers, uneasy and sharp. What began as a joke was now becoming something else, something no one expected. Princess Zira's strikes came faster, fueled by her pride. Her black armor glistened with sweat and fury as she swung her massive blade, each strike strong enough to break stone. She wanted this fight finished, wanted the human crushed beneath her feet. But no matter how hard she struck, the human refused to fall. He was slower, yes. His blade was smaller, weaker. His body carried wounds, red stains spreading across his combat suit. And yet, he stood. Again and again, he rose. Every step he took was measured. Every strike he made was precise. He wasted no movement, never giving more than he had to. The patience in his fighting was unlike anything Zira had seen before. The princess snarled, slamming her blade down with such force that the floor cracked. The human rolled away, dust and sparks flying around him, then lunged forward with surprising speed. His blade cut across her side, not deep enough to wound her seriously, but enough to make her stumble. Gasps erupted from the crowd. A human had struck the princess. For the first time, her blood touched the arena floor. Zira froze for a heartbeat, staring at the thin line of crimson on her armor. Her eyes widened, then narrowed in fury. "You dare!" she shouted, her voice shaking the air. She charged again, her blade swinging like a storm. The human stepped back, blocking, dodging, sliding, just out of reach. His body moved with rhythm, like a soldier who had practiced this moment 1,000 times. And in the stands, the murmurs grew louder. "He is adapting," one alien whispered. "He is learning her movements." The truth was clear. While she fought with power, he fought with patience. While she grew angrier, he grew calmer. With each clash, he saw more of her patterns, her quick slash to the left, her heavy strike from above, the spin of her blade when she grew desperate, and he waited. His endurance was shocking. Even wounded, even tired, his will was unbroken. Every time she tried to crush him, he found a way to stand. The crowd, once cheering for her victory, now sat in uneasy silence. Zyra's fury grew with every breath. Her strikes became wild, heavy, less controlled. The sweat on her forehead dripped into her eyes. Her arms burned with the weight of her own weapon. She was strong, yes, but her pride was turning her strength into weakness. The human saw it. He saw the small delay in her recovery after each powerful strike. He saw the way her breathing grew heavier, the way her footwork began to falter. Then came the moment. Zyra raised her blade high for a crushing strike, the same move that had ended dozens of duels before. But this time, the human stepped forward, instead of back. He caught her strike at an angle, deflecting it with his smaller blade, then twisted his body. With one swift movement, his weapon sliced across her arm. Sparks flew as her armor was cut, and the blade bit into her flesh. She cried out, not in pain, but in shock. The crowd gasped as one. A human had wounded their undefeated champion. Zyra stumbled back, clutching her arm. Her eyes burned with rage, but deep inside, something else stirred. Doubt. She stared at the human, who stood tall despite the blood on his own body. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, but his eyes were steady, unshaken. His voice carried. Across the silent arena, "You are strong," he said simply. "But you fight with pride, not with purpose. That is why you will lose." The words struck harder than his blade. For the first time in her life, Princess Zyra felt the ground beneath. Her feet shift. The galaxy had always told her she was unstoppable. But now, standing before her, was a man from the weakest race in the stars. And he was breaking her. The crowd's silence turned into murmurs. Some aliens leaned forward, their eyes wide. Others whispered in disbelief. Is this possible? A human defeating her? Zyra's pride screamed inside her. She tightened her grip on her sword, her blood dripping down her arm. She could not fall. She would not fall. But as she stared at the human, she realized the truth. This was no longer a duel for amusement. This was a battle that could change everything. The human raised his blade again, his body trembling but his will unbroken. He had waited for this moment, and now it had come. The turning point had arrived, and the galaxy held its breath. The moment of truth, the arena was silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing. Dust hung in the air. Sparks from broken stones flickered at their feet. Princess Zyra stood with her great blade gripped tight, blood dripping from her arm. Across from her, the human warrior stood wounded and weary, his smaller blade held steady. The crowd leaned forward, their voices hushed. The duel that was meant to be a joke had become something else, something dangerous. For the first time, the galaxy watched a human stand as an equal against a warrior feared across the stars. Zyra bared her teeth, fury burning in her chest. Her pride would not let her fall. She roared and charged, her blade swinging down like a hammer meant to split the earth. The human met her strike, steel clashing against steel, the sound echoing like thunder. He staggered under the force, but did not fall. Instead, he twisted, redirecting her momentum, forcing her off balance. His blade cut across her side, deeper this time. The crowd gasped. Blood spread across her armor. Zyra growled, her eyes blazing with hate. She swung again, faster, harder, desperate to end him. Their blades clashed again and again, sparks flying, the arena floor breaking beneath their feet. Each time she struck, he found a way to block or dodge. Each time he was struck, he rose again, his body screaming with pain, but his spirit unbroken. The duel had reached its peak. The human's breath came heavy, his body trembling. His arms ached, his wounds burned, but inside him, something stronger. Then pain kept him moving. Every time he looked at her, he saw not just an enemy, but a chance, an opening for humanity to prove itself. Meanwhile, felt something she had never known before: fear. Not of death, but of failure. For the first time, she saw herself slipping, her strength wasted by her rage, while the human grew sharper with every strike. With a roar, she raised her blade for a final, crushing blow, putting all her strength, all her fury into one attack. The air shook as her weapon came down, fast and heavy, meant to end him once and for all. But the human had been waiting for this dot at the last moment. He stepped aside, his body moving with precision. Her blade smashed into the ground, stone shattering. Beneath its weight, for the briefest second, she was open unguarded. The human moved. His blade flashed, quick and certain. It struck her weapon, forcing it from her hand. The sound of steel hitting stone rang through the arena. The crowd erupted in shock. The princess staggered, weaponless, her eyes wide. And then, before she could recover, the human pressed forward. His blade came up to her throat, steady despite. His shaking hands. Silence fell. For the first time in her life, Princess Zira was disarmed. For the first time, her pride was broken. A human stood over her, bloodied, bruised, but unyielding. His voice was low, but it carried through the arena. Like fire. "It's over," he said. The crowd sat frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. A human had done the impossible. He had defeated the warrior princess of the Velith. Zira's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Her pride screamed at her to deny it, to rise again, to fight until she had nothing left. But her heart knew the truth. She had been beaten not by a stronger body, not by a sharper blade, but by something she could not break. His will. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The laughter that had filled the halls the night before was gone. In its place was something. New respect and fear. The human did not gloat. He did not shout in victory. He only lowered his blade slightly, his voice calm. "You said if a human defeated you, you would marry him." The words echoed across the chamber. Zira's eyes widened, her body stiffening as the memory of her vow struck her. She had spoken those words before the council, before the galaxy. It had been a joke, a cruel laugh at humanity's weakness. But now the joke had turned against her. The crowd erupted again, voices rising like a storm. Some laughed in disbelief, others shouted that she must honor her vow. Some cried out in rage, unwilling to see their champion bound to a human. Zira's face was unreadable. Her pride battled with her honor, her fury with her respect. Slowly, she raised her eyes to meet his. For the first time, she did not see weakness. She did not see fragility. She saw fire. She saw something she had never understood before: human strength that was not in muscle, but in spirit. And for the first time, she felt it: respect. The duel was over. The human had won. The galaxy had witnessed history. The promise remembered. The arena was still. The silence was heavier than any roar of battle. Thousands of eyes locked on the warrior princess, who now stood weaponless, her chest rising and falling as blood ran down her side. And before her stood the human, cut, bruised, bleeding, yet steady. His blade hovered at her throat, not in cruelty, but in quiet finality. The duel was over. The crowd erupted. Shouts shook the chamber like thunder. Some voices screamed in rage, others in disbelief, and many in awe. A human, one of the weakest races in the galaxy, had done the impossible. He had defeated Princess Zira, the undefeated champion of her people. But above the chaos, one truth hung heavy in every mind. She had made a vow: if a human ever defeats me, I will marry him. It had been said before the council. It had been. Heard by thousands, recorded, sealed in the archives of the galaxy. What was meant as a mocking laugh had now become an unbreakable chain. The human lowered his blade slightly, but his eyes never left hers. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise. "You said the words," he reminded her. "Now the galaxy waits for your answer." Zira's breath caught in her throat. Pride burned inside her, screaming to deny it, to say it was only a joke. But her people valued honor. The Velith were warriors. Every vow, every promise was sacred. To break her word would mean shame, not only for her, but for her entire race. The council leader rose from his seat, his golden robes glowing in the light. His voice carried authority that none could deny. "Princess Zira," he said, his tone heavy with judgment, "you spoke your vow before the galaxy. A human has defeated you. Will you honor your word? Or will you bring shame upon your people?" The crowd hushed, waiting. Every eye returned to her dot, her fists tightened, nails cutting into her palms. Her body shook with fury, her pride bleeding more than her wounds. Never had she imagined this day. Never had she thought a human could rise to such a level. And yet, here he was. She looked at him, at his calm face, his steady eyes, his body marked with blood and pain. He had not mocked her. He had not gloated. He had not sought to humiliate her. He had fought with dignity, with will, with something she could not name. Something inside her shifted. Slowly, she lifted her head. Her voice came low, strained, but clear enough for all to hear. "A vow is a vow," she said. The crowd gasped. Some roared with disbelief. Others cheered wildly. Her words cut through the chaos like a blade. Zira took a step forward, her eyes locked on the human. "You have defeated me. By my own words, by the pride of my people. I cannot deny it. I will keep my vow." The arena erupted. Some shouted in outrage, unable to accept their princess would bind herself to a human. Others cheered, seeing honor, held above pride. The council chamber shook with the storm of voices. The human stood silently, his blade lowered, his body weary but unbowed. He did not smile, did not mock, did not raise his arms in triumph. He only nodded once, a small sign of respect. The council leader raised his hand for silence. His voice carried again, deep and powerful. "Let it be recorded across the stars. The vow has been kept. The human has triumphed. The warrior princess of Velith has chosen honor. History is made this day. The galaxy would not forget." Zira's eyes softened for the first time. She looked at the man before her and felt something she had not expected. Not love, not yet, but respect. Respect for one who stood when all others would have fallen. Respect for a spirit that could not be broken. Her. Words came softer now, spoken only to him, though the crowd still roared. "You are not what I thought humans were." The human's answer was quiet, almost a whisper. "We never are." For a moment, their eyes locked, not as enemies, but as something new, something unspoken. The vow had been fulfilled, but the story was far from over. The crowd still raged around them, some calling for celebration, others for protest. The galaxy itself seemed divided. But in the center of the chaos stood two figures, a human who had proven his people's strength, and a princess who had learned the weight of her own pride. The promise was remembered. The vow was sealed dot, and the stars themselves seemed to burn brighter, as if they too knew that this moment had changed everything. The unexpected ending, the council chamber, still shook with voices. Some shouted in anger, unwilling to accept what they had seen. Others cheered, celebrating a moment they thought impossible. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath dot in the center of it all stood the human warrior and Princess Zira. The duel was finished, but the storm it had created was only beginning. The council leader raised his voice again, his golden robe glowing under the lights. Let all remember this day. A human has defeated the champion of the Velith. A vow was spoken. A vow has been kept. From this day forward, let it be recorded across the stars. The words echoed, and the chamber erupted once more. Some Velith. Warriors roared with outrage. It cannot be. Our princess cannot bind herself to a human. Others hissed and spat, calling it shame. Yet among them, some bowed their heads, silent but thoughtful. They had seen the fight. They had seen his will. They could not deny what had happened. The human stood quietly, his blade now sheathed. His wounds burned, his body ached, but his spirit remained steady. He had not fought for glory. He had not fought for marriage. He had fought for something far greater, for humanity's honor. Zyra turned to face him fully. Her dark eyes locked on his, no longer filled with mockery, but with something new, respect, perhaps even curiosity. She spoke, her voice carrying both strength and calm. You have defeated me, and by my vow, I stand by my word. From this day, you are no longer just human. You are my equal. The chamber fell into silence at those words. For the Velith, it was shocking. For the council, it was unthinkable. A human, once mocked as fragile, now stood as equal to one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy. The human bowed his head slightly. I do not seek to be above you, he said. I only sought to show that humans are not what you think we are. Zyra's lips curved, not into a cruel smile, but into something softer. You have shown me much, perhaps more than I wish to learn. But honor demands I walk the path I set. I will not turn from it. Her words spread across the chamber like fire. Even those who hated the idea could not deny it. She had kept her vow. The crowd's noise began to change. The laughter and mockery that had once filled the hall were gone. In its place came whispers, heavy and dangerous. Whispers of fear, whispers of respect, whispers of a new truth. The humans. One alien leader muttered, They are not weak. Another leaned forward, his eyes narrow. If one human could defeat her, what will their armies do? The thought spread quickly. Humanity, once ignored, once laughed at, had shown a strength the galaxy had never expected. Not strength of muscle, but of spirit. A strength that could not be broken. The human stood in the center of it all, his presence quiet but unshakable. He had changed the galaxy in a single fight, not with power, but with will. Zyra stepped closer, her voice low enough only he could hear. Do not think this ends here. By vow, you are tied to me now. The galaxy will never see us the same again. The human met her gaze. Then let them see. Let them know what humans are. For a long moment, they stood together, warrior and human, once enemies, now bound by honor and destiny. The council leader's voice rose one final time. So it is done. The vow is sealed. The galaxy has witnessed the rise of a new chapter. Humanity has shown its strength. Let all races remember this day. The chamber shook with noise again, but the human did not hear it. His mind was quiet, his heart steady. He had walked into the arena as a man mocked by the stars. He walked out as something else, something the galaxy would never forget. Princess Zyra lifted her head, her voice proud though her pride had been. Wounded, from this day I will not mock humans again. For in you I have seen what cannot be broken. The crowd stirred. Her words carried weight far beyond the duel. To hear the warrior princess herself admit respect for a human was a shock. Greater than the battle itself, the human said nothing. He only looked up at the stars through the open ceiling of the chamber. For him, the fight was not about marriage, not about pride. It was about proving a truth. And now the galaxy knew. From this day forward, no one would laugh at humanity so easily. No one would mock them as fragile. For the galaxy had witnessed. The impossible, the unexpected had happened. A human had defeated the princess. And in doing so, he had changed the stars forever.